All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll keep admitting people as once we get started. Obviously, welcome everybody to this is part 17 um, of 3 levels. Thank you for being here tonight. Got 3 really good ones tonight that I'm excited about. Just a couple ground rules real quick. Obviously, each coach will share. They'll talk their journey, share what they want to share, and then we'll open up for questions after each coach. If you ask a question, please introduce yourself, name, school, where you're from, and then try to ask your question a little directly. Try not to tell a story for everyone's sake. So we'll keep it moving. So first up tonight, we have Coach Gameli Ahelegbe from University of South Dakota. I've gotten to know Coach G, as he's affectionately known, through this quarantine. Met him on the Alvin Brooks Be Ready sessions. And him and I have really gotten to form a great relationship and friendship. So I'm really excited to hear from him tonight. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Coach G.
Appreciate it, Dave. First of all, I want to thank you for giving me a chance to come on here and kind of share my journey and tell my story a little bit. Obviously, I've been on some of your calls and listen to other people speak, and the platform you have for us coaches to get better, I think, is big time. So I want to thank you for letting me to get on here and speak. And then obviously I'm excited to listen to Coach Kane, Coach Driscoll, 2 other good coaches. To be honest, while I was kind of preparing to do this thing, I really hate talking about myself. So trying to figure out like, okay, what do I tell these guys so I don't feel like I'm just talking about myself the entire time. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of share a little bit of some key moments, I think, in my life that helped mold me to become the coach that I am today, and how I operate and why I kind of just invest so much in guys, because obviously people had to invest in me growing up as a player. I come from a family where both my parents are Ghanaian, and so I'm essentially a first-generation kid living in America. Both my parents coming from Ghana. My dad came first, brought my mom, and had me and my little brothers, and brought the rest of my siblings. So I come from a big family, but come from no money. Sports, basketball was not a huge thing in our family. Obviously, being African, soccer is kind of a sport that everyone plays. But being 6'5", my older brother was like, dude, you're getting too tall to be playing soccer, man. You better go try to find something else. So that's how I kind of started playing basketball. But from my parents, they instilled in me is kind of hard work. I saw my mom work the night shifts as a nurse at a nursing home. My dad was kind of in and out of jobs, trying to make ends meet. And so watching my parents kind of hustle and bustle to kind of make our family work is kind of something that's been instilled in me as far as hard work that I try to approach with my job as an assistant and teach to our guys just the importance of hard work. And so that's one thing I've learned from my parents. And then through my playing experience, there's been 3 key major moments in my life that I know has helped me become a better coach. And in high school, I was fortunate enough to play for, I think, a Hall of Fame coach in Mark Klingsporn. In my 4 years of high school, and Coach Kane, like this, I played with a guy named Jake Sullivan, who was an Iowa State alum. A teammate of mine, was one of the best pure scorers, pure shooters I've ever seen. But in my high school career, I went 77-7. So I got to experience winning at an early age. And obviously us as coaches, we're judging winning. So being a part of winning at a very early age and understanding what it takes to win have helped me. I've never been kind of the guy, but I've always been one of the guys. And so I remember my senior year, this was after we won a state title as a junior with Jake. We're kind of on our quest to go back to back. And then we're on this road trip and get dressed and get ready to go to shoot around or get ready to for the walkthrough. And then my coach was like, yo, G, you're not playing tonight. I'm like, what? What do you mean I'm not playing tonight? It's like your progress reports just came in. And mind you, I wasn't your best student, but I was a good student. And he was like, hey, you're missing an assignment in this class. I'm like, coach, I got to be in this class. Like, you can't not play me. Like, Coach, I got to play. My mom's coming to the game. And if you guys don't know, for an African woman who works nights, who values her sleep and chooses not to sleep to come watch me play, and she drives and finds out I'm not playing, that's basically an ass whooping ready to happen. So I was like, Coach, you got to play me. My mom's coming to the game. You got to play me. And I was like, no, you missed this class, you missed this assignment in this class, so you're not playing. So I'm like, damn, this is not good. But as a kid, I didn't understand what he was doing at the time. He was instilling in me the accountability, the work ethic, the discipline to realize that it's not always about basketball, that's about, the big picture, and knowing that I'm not going to play basketball for the rest of my life. And so understand that school's important, even though I've been instilled that from my parents, but just my coach instilling that. And I think now as a coach, and we all have those kids that don't take school that important, that, think they're going to play basketball. That's kind of our jobs as coaches, to help them see the big picture. So they understand that one day the ball's going to stop bouncing, and, they got to have a plan what they're going to do when the game of basketball is over. And I think, again, back to my parents, I was fortunate enough to understand the importance of education because they instilled that in me at a very, very early age. And so now a lot of kids, I feel like when we get them, really don't have an idea of what they want to do. And so as coaches, I think we can kind of do a good job of trying to, help paint a picture, steer them in a direction that can help them, move forward in what they want to do after basketball, and at least give them a picture or give them a vision that they can potentially achieve. And then after high school, again, Jake decided to commit to Iowa State super early. I was really pissed. I was like, dude, Jake, you got to kind of let this thing play out so these coaches could come watch us. So I ended up going junior college, chasing Division I dream. And that's where I learned style of play and fit. Obviously, for us coaches now that we're out recruiting, we all have fits that fit for our program. And so when we're recruiting, we're trying to find that fit. And that's how I learned fit, going to play for a junior college out in Neosho County, playing for Craig Fletcher, who's now at Barton County. He loved playing small ball. And in high school, I played the 5. And so everyone was like, gee, you got to kind of be on the wing. And so everyone was like, hey, this JUCO is a D1 JUCO, and go play there, and that will help you with your recruitment. So I went there, and I'm playing the 4 at 6'5". And in today's game, it would suit me a little bit better being a versatile guy. But, then it's like everyone wants the big 7-footers. That didn't fit me. So I was like, dang, this didn't help me at all. But, that's kind of playing there. I obviously had a great experience. It's helped me now in my coaching because of the relationships I have with some JUCO coaches and understanding how to coach junior college kids, because I used to be that kid. So that's where I learned kind of fit in recruiting and style of play and how that relates to where you're going. So that's stories I always share with guys in recruiting. And then from there, obviously, I ended up going to Minnesota State Mankato, playing for a guy named Matt Morgenthaler. I always tell people that my recruiting class was the start of that Division II powerhouse. There at the time when I was playing was the NCC, which is now the league essentially that I'm coaching in now in the Summit League, because a lot of schools that were playing, the South Dakota, North Dakotas, South Dakota States, were in the league that I was playing in at the time. And so, again, through my whole playing career, I've always started. And when I got to Minnesota State, just like most kids, I'm like, man, I didn't go Division I. I had some options, but I was like, I'm going Division II. I'm just going to go kill over there and kind of make my name that way. And when I did that, I got hurt right away. And then I didn't get my starting spot back. And that moment was very, very pivotal for me as a coach, because we all have that player that think they should be starting, that we feel they'll be better off coming off the bench or whatever. Not everyone wants to start, not everyone can start. And I was that guy that was disgruntled, like, coach, I should be starting. Like I've never came up the bench ever in my life, and this disgruntled. I wanted to transfer, the whole 9 yards. And what I learned from that experience that's helped me today, which is why I kind of operate the way I do, is if someone would have just told me at that time, like, gee, listen, we can play you anywhere on the floor. Because I could play, that first year I played the point, and I could play at the 4, I could play the 2, the 3, I was pretty versatile. But if someone would have been able to communicate that to me as a role, like, gee, this is going to be your role, and I would have had that understanding, I would have had a better mindset and a better mind frame to attack, to help our team. Granted, our team still won. But individually, I was in the mind frame to give my best to that team because I wasn't clearly communicated to what my role was and what my responsibility was. And so that experience as a player has now helped me as a coach to, make sure our guys truly understand and know what their role is, and kind of help, again, as assistants, and Coach Driscoll will talk from a head coaching perspective, how we can help navigate some of those issues so the head coach doesn't have to deal with it. Having those conversations with those guys that are disgruntled about their playing time, and trying to help paint the picture of what the coach's vision is for them. And so I was fortunate that I went through that as a player. That's now helped me as a coach to be able to have those conversations with guys so they can have a better understanding of it. So that was very pivotal for me now as a coach. So those 3 experiences as a player has definitely molded me to be the coach I am now. And then once I kind of graduated school, I played a year in the ABA, trying to chase the professional dream, gave that up. But at that time, I knew I wanted to coach. I had a little brother that was coming up. I helped kind of mold him. He played at Northern Iowa, had a very successful career. He was part of that team that beat Kansas to go to the Sweet 16. And so just that experience of helping him and guys like PJ Hill, who played at Ohio State, I was fortunate because after my playing career, I worked at a place called 43 Hoops for a guy named Chris Carter playing in the NBA, and learned about player development. Obviously now, as coaches, that's one thing which we get our players. They always want to get better. So I got the first hand of being able to work with some of the best players in Minnesota as a player development guy, as a trainer now, which has kind of been, when I was doing it, wasn't everyone trying to be a trainer, where now we got 20 trainers in every city. When I was doing it, there was probably a handful of guys doing it. So I was fortunate enough to learn how to make players better. And so that experience then at that AAU program, 43 Hoops, working with a bunch of guys, has helped me develop into a guy that knows how to, essentially develop players and spend time with players. And the reason why I think that is important is because when we work with our guys, that one-on-one time you get outside of practice or spending extra time getting those guys to shoot or whatever, that just help them get better, is when you can really pour into your players. For me, I think our job is being servants. Like, I didn't get into this profession to kind of make a ton of money. Obviously, our businesses are very lucrative, but for every coach that's in here that's trying to get in the business or getting it, you got to kind of know what your why is and why you're doing what you're doing. And for me, it's always about the stuff I wish I would have known as a player. I feel like it's my job to give that back to the players I coach now. And so that's when you're spending that one-on-one time with guys, especially in the gym, you can really make a difference in those guys' life by really speaking truth to them, helping them find a picture, paint a vision for them. And, you can kind of help mold the kid to have success. And I've learned a lot of that when I was working at 43 Hoops as a trainer, just spending time, because I was there for 4 years, and I had over 30 kids get a scholarship. And every one of those kids that I've trained, I still talk to this day. And a lot of those guys are now, either playing overseas or now getting in the coaching profession. So it's helped me with my relationships because of the time and the equity I spent with the players back then, just helping them become better people. So I think that's a very, very big component as coaches is when you're getting in the profession, make sure you know your why and not, again, money's never driven me, so that's never been my why. My why has always been about service. So I think the coaching profession is about serving people, right? We're serving our players as assistants. We're serving our head coach to make his job a lot easier. Obviously, everyone's at either a college coach or even a high school. You have a community or school that's passionate about your program. You're serving them because they want your program to be successful. And so I just think as coaches, we got to make sure we know our why on why we're doing what we're doing. And then so basically after that experience at 43 Hoops, I was fortunate enough to get into the profession because at that time, a lot of those guys I was coaching were starting to get into college, and I was starting to get into young kids where mom and dad was like, hey, my kid should be the next LeBron. You got to, I wasn't into that. I wasn't into the babysitting and working with the kids that, essentially weren't really good. And so my friend, mentor, Chris Carr, was like, dude, you should try college. And so I called my old college coach at Minnesota State, went down there and volunteered for a year and learned the business of coaching. And I was there for a year, and then I took a D3 job for a year. And then those two experiences was kind of my foundation of learning the coaching profession. And then I was fortunate enough to break to Division I at University of North Dakota. And when I was there, I worked with great people. And that's where I learned the importance of working with a good staff and everyone being on the same page and working together and putting egos aside that can help a program win. And at that time when I was there, we were just finishing a transition. And if you guys don't know, going through a transition is a very difficult task to do. And once we got through that, I was there for 3 years, and we went to the postseason all 3 years, with only being eligible to play in the NCAA tournament 1 year. And so that was a success in itself, being able to play in postseason. But the success we had, I credit that a lot to our staff for all being such a tight group, because if you're on a staff where everyone has an ego and everyone trying to get their own thing accomplished as assistants, you'll never win. And so I just urge a lot of you guys, when you're getting in this, you got to put your ego aside and do what's best for the group for the betterment of your kids. Again, it goes back to that word of service, because that's what we're here for, serving our players, serving our head coach. And so that's just one thing I urge, because that's one thing I've truly learned, because from all the staffs I've been on, my 3 years there, and obviously I've been a part of great staff, so I'm on a great staff here at South Dakota, but I've really learned that when I was there. And then 3 years there, and then I had an opportunity to come here, and the way I got here was because of, at the time, Craig Smith was the head coach, who was now at Utah State, was coaching at North Dakota State, was a Division II school at the time when I was in the league playing at Minnesota State Mankato. And so he remembered me as a player. And then when I was on the road recruiting, and I built the relationship with him, and he remembered me as a player. And so just the relationship piece is what allowed me to come here. And so you may never know, for guys that are trying to get into the business, again, you may never know who's watching you. And so you may never know who may be a head coach one day. And so you have to treat everybody that you meet or come across as a potential head coach one day that could potentially hire you. So you don't ever want to, maybe because that guy is a manager now or a JV coach, you may never know where their career path may take them. So treat people the way you want to be treated. It's very cliche. We hear it all the time. But for me, that's how I was raised, and I think it's true, you know. Because at the time when I knew Craig, he was an assistant. I never knew that he'd be one day be a guy that hired me to work for him. But just because of the relationship we built, I got a chance to work for him at a great time. And now I'm working for a guy, Todd Lee, who, again, because of relationships I had, allowed me to essentially stay on staff here and continue our building our program that we've built. So that's kind of been my journey into the profession. The things I want to really talk about that I didn't realize was, I just thought it was pretty basic 101 in coaching, is evaluating and recruiting a little bit. When you're as an assistant, we all know what a good player is, but we have to realize that when we're out evaluating players, we're not evaluating the players that come play for us. We're evaluating players that play for the head coach. And so you have to do a great job of knowing your head coach, what your head coach likes and doesn't like, and recruit to that. And so I've been fortunate enough being in the Dakotas, knowing that we don't get top tier talent and 4 or 5 star players that come out here. We have to be very deliberate, intentional in how we go about recruiting and evaluating our players. And so I've been fortunate in my time. I've been in the profession now. This is going on my 11th year, 10 full time as a paid assistant, that I've been fortunate enough to sign good players, coach great players, but a lot of that had to do because of trusting our eyes and evaluating people that fit what we do versus the overall perception of social media or what other people are saying to get a kid. And in my 11 years of coaching, I've been a part of 3 losing seasons. And I've been fortunate that I've been around really good coaches, really good staffs that are all about winning and not about their own ego that affect winning. And so because of that is the reason why we've had some success. And I just think that's something that's very key wherever you guys are at, is when you're out recruiting and evaluating players, making sure you're looking what's best for your coach and not what's best for you. Because at the end of the day, you're not the head coach. Once you're the head coach, you want your assistant to recruit to what you like and not what you're wanting. So that's just a little bit about me. The last thing I'll leave you guys with is I always tell people there's time for everything. We always value our time. And in this profession, when you have a family, time is priceless. And for me, what time means, which I think applies to each and every one of you and every day, and what I kind of stress with our players, and again, go about how I work with our players, is, to me, time stands for being truthful, transparent, and transforming yourself. Allowing yourself to have an open mind to learn, to get better, which is if you're intentional about trying to improve, once you have that open mind, that'll allow you to be better and get better in the profession. And once you're intentional about improving, you allow yourself to have the right mindset and be motivated to improve, to get better as a coach each and every day. And then once you are motivated and have the right mindset, that's going to allow you to be energized and have enthusiasm and have, great effort that allows you to be empowered and to empower others. And so for me, that's what time stands for. And so you need to value your time. and be intentional about how you're spending your time. And make sure you're being intentional about who you surround yourself with, the people you work for, and just be very intentional with your time because, as we all know, time is very valuable. And so, again, I don't have a whole ton to share. I just figure I'd leave kind of that little bit of a nugget for you guys. Value your time because time is valuable. And I guess at that point, I'll kind of leave it up for questions for anybody.
If anyone has a question, just go ahead and unmute yourself and you can jump right in. I'll go ahead and ask one. How has being in sort of a part of the country that I guess one, no one's not a lot familiar with, and two, is a little different. How has that, do you feel, helped you as a coach for either one day when you move to a part of the country maybe someone's heard of or more familiar with, or when you become a head coach?
Yeah, it goes back to kind of just being intentional. Like I said, I've been in a country that's not a sexy name. Like shit, there's a lot of people who don't even know that we exist. Being in North and South Dakota. So not only do you have to be able to paint a good picture, but you have to do a great job of evaluating players. Because again, not everyone wants to come here. A lot of guys I've signed at North Dakota and South Dakota have been guys that either have one scholarship or no scholarships. And, you know, a lot of people think we're crazy with the guys we're recruiting, but at the end of the day, we find guys that fit us. And I think that goes back to just the skill set of being able to truly evaluate players. And, you know, for us, specifically for me, when I'm out evaluating, I try to do my job early, where by the time people can get in, it's too late. So I'll give you an example. I was recruiting a kid at North Dakota named Quentin Hooker. He played for Howard Poole in the EYBL. He was teammates playing with the guy named Tyus Jones, who is now playing for the Memphis Grizzlies. So Quentin Hooker was a guy that was a winner. You know, he was 6 feet on a good day, and on his AAU team, he was playing the 2 and the 3. So if you went and watch your team, you're like, who is this kid that's 6 feet, grabbing a few rebounds, just kind of making some crazy passes? You're like, this kid's not good enough. But again, that's if you paid attention to him, you'll realize that, okay, that kid's playing a point guard, but he's just playing out of position because they have a pro at the point guard spot in Tyus Jones. So because I trusted my eyes and now what everybody else said, I went back and watched him in high school, and he took a team that was not known for winning at the time, and he brought them to a state tournament. And the team they ended up losing to was Tyus Jones, who's now playing in the NBA. But that year, he ends up winning Mr. Basketball, and every Mr. Basketball kid out of Minnesota has either gone to a mid-major level or higher. Quentin Hooker won Mr. Basketball. I got him to come to North Dakota. And so that's just kind of a prime example of, because we're kind of in the middle of nowhere, you have to have a good eye for what you're looking for, what you're needing for your teams. And so I was fortunate, you know, to get a guy like that to come to North Dakota. And obviously he goes to North Dakota and had the same type of career. You know, by the time it was all said and done, his senior year, he brings North Dakota to the NCAA tournament and had the chance to beat Arizona in a tournament game. And so those are the type of stories, those are the type of things that probably helped me more than anything being out in this part of the country. It's just how intentional you have to be with evaluating and just how you have to go about even marketing your program and just, you know, promoting your program so people can recognize you.
Coach G, are there certain things that you're doing like differently, you think, for the marketing and promoting?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything necessarily different. I just think that I'm pretty genuine type of guy, and I'm all about relationships. And everyone likes to be associated with good people at the end of the day. And so I think if you just go out and be genuine and about your relationship building with people, I think people will hold you in a higher regard where they'll want to do business with you. And so I think that's kind of one of the ways I've been able to, kind of help promote our brand, is just by being a good person. Because anytime you're on the road recruiting and evaluating players, everyone's watching you, whether it's the grassroots coach, other colleagues in the program, or, if you have players in that area that know about you, like, scouting service people, they're always watching it, and however you treat them is what they're going to say about you. So I've been fortunate enough that, at least I don't think a lot of people say bad things about me. So everyone knows, man, Coach G is a good dude. South Dakota's got good people. So that's a message we want to spread around. So when people know about that, and people that are talking, saying good things about us, that kind of helps kind of build your brand by marketing it. And then obviously winning helps. And so we've been fortunate enough to get good players to help us win games that we can kind of market and push behind, and we treat our players right. So when they leave our program, they say nothing but good things. And so I think that's what's kind of helped us to kind of market our brand by being the people that we are, genuine good people.
Coach G, it's Tim Pete from Missouri Western State. It's been great meeting you and getting to know you especially over these past few weeks. My question's kind of loaded. What's your dream job in the sense of being a head coach? And then what would you take from the people that you work for and implement to your program if you were at your dream job?
If I'm at my dream job, that's a great question. I'll say this about my dream job. For a long time, Creighton University used to be my dream job, especially when they're in the Missouri Valley, because they had a great fan base. And obviously, my little brother, Ahelegbe, played at Northern Iowa when the Valley was a really good league. I mean, it's still a great league, don't get me wrong. But the tradition and fan base that they had there, that was essentially my dream job, was working at Creighton as a head guy. The things I've learned that I would bring with me is, one, I would want your staff, I think, is critical in just surrounding yourself with people that are in it for the right reasons. Because there's a lot of people in our profession that are self-motivated and self-driven for themselves versus serving people. Like, I'm very big on just serving people. And so I want to be surrounded with people that are about the players and about serving. Because the more you serve others, the more you receive. The more you serve your players, the better your players will be. And so hiring good people will for sure be number one. And then two, I think the other thing is once you hire good people, is kind of delegate and let those people do what they're good at. I've been fortunate enough to have worked for people that allow me to do kind of what I'm good at. And so it's empowered me to kind of take ownership of it. And the more people that you have in ownership of what they're doing, I think the better they will be. And the better your program will be, because more people will be invested in it. And so those are probably the biggest things that I would say about that. That was a loaded question, TP.
Coach Owens, you want an easier one. How many times have you driven by Paul Bunyan and Big Blue? I thought it was a joke. When I used to be a fifth grade teacher, I thought it was a joke in the book until I drove past it. That joke
Yeah.
was real.
Yeah. So here's what's funny. So I've never been, again, I spent all of my coaching career in the Dakota. So for me, I've always had to drive at least 4 to 5 hours just to be in the metropolitan city to see more than one player at a time. And so you spend a lot of time in the car and you kind of, you know, a lot of time on the phone. So I've been fortunate. I think it's helped me because all those long road trips I've had, I've been able to build genuine relationship with people, and I'm still trying to expand my network of people. So like, here's a prime example. Because of that, I've never recruited out East ever. And at my time at South Dakota, we were like, we got kind of expand our network. And so I started making random trips. I knew nobody out East. And I took one trip out there. And when I went out there, I was out there for 4 days. And so every time I go out there, I have no problem driving 4 or 5 hours because I'm used to doing that here in South Dakota. And 4 or 5 hours out East, you can get to 5 states in a 4 or 5 hour radius, depending where you're at. And so because of that, I've been fortunate enough to kind of develop some relationships out East with some prep school guys and prep school coaches, AU coaches out East that kind of is helping us, that we're now in position to get some kids from out in that area. But because I'm not afraid to drive 4 or 5 hours, I've been able to not only build great relationship with people out there, but be able to cover a lot more ground just because of my willingness to drive crazy amount of hours.
We got time. If we have one last quick question, does anyone have one?
Coach, quick question for you, man. It's Fett Castro at Rider University. You mentioned trust in your eyes, Coach. With that being said, when you're dealing with these scouting services, man, how often do you trust their opinions, or is it more so just for intel?
That's a great question. Here's what I'll say. The scouting service people I know, I build relationships. I want to know what they're watching to be able to trust them. And so there's certain guys that I trust because I've built a genuine relationship where they know what I'm looking for. And so when they tell me something, it's easy for me to trust them. But at the end of the day, no matter what scouting service guy tells me, I'm still going to want to see that player for myself so I can see it with my own 2 eyes to be able to make the assessment that I think will be best for us. So I think scouting service people are great because obviously they can help you with at least getting intel, and for some people that are not into evaluating, where I love evaluating, so I love putting a team together. You know, it's great intel, but at the end of the day, for me, I'm gonna trust my eyes more so than what somebody else is telling me.
Coach, appreciate that.
Coach Benator would be our last one.
Coach G, what's going on, man? Brian Benator, West Florida.
Yeah.
Talking about, you talked about family a little bit. Talk about balancing, you know, what are maybe some of the things that you do with and especially having children, little kids, because I know, you got 3 little ones. What are some things you do to kind of obviously help, balance between that family life and spending time with your kids versus obviously making sure you're doing the best you can, for your program?
Yep. Well, first and foremost, I have a rock star of a wife. And so I would not be able to do what I'm capable of doing for a program if it wasn't for my wife that essentially allows me to do what I do. So one, my wife is a rock star where I won't be able to do what I do without her. But I think, for me, I think that's kind of one of the advantages of being here at South Dakota is because it's such a small knit community. I could bring my kids with me to events. I could bring my kids to games. My kids run around so they understand what you're doing. They understand what dad's doing. And so And obviously for us, we recruit essentially the Midwest, you know, Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota. I can get to a lot of places within 4 or 5 hour drive. And because I'm such a family guy, people start to know that. So I have no problem bringing my kids every now and again with me on a recruiting trip. So I've been fortunate just because I have a great wife that allows me to get away to do what I do, and she probably likes it that I'm gone, because since quarantine said I have to been home, she's been ready to kick me out of here. So she's like, man, you need to go on the road. But great wife, and just, you know, being a good person, I guess. I don't know. That's a great question.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. Well, Coach G, I really appreciate you sharing with us tonight. I thought, you know, obviously getting to hear your journey from this side of it after getting to know you was really good. So thank you for coming on and sharing with us.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So next up, we're going to go to Coach James Kane, Iowa State. Coach Kane's been, you know, obviously around the country and big recruiter in South Carolina. So that's he knows where the players are at. So really excited to hear from Coach Kane and sharing his journey. So I'm going to turn it over to Coach James Kane.
Coach G, greatly appreciate that info, man. Just like you, my first sport growing up was soccer. So I played it my whole life. My mom is Colombian, so I'm first generation Colombian. So it was big in our household. And that scouting service question, that's a funny question that you asked, man, because every single level that I've been going up, more and more scouting services you apparently have to buy since you have more money. So when I was at Murray State with Shay Nichols, you know, we only had about 2 or 3 that we bought. So budget's a little different, but I greatly appreciate that info, Coach G. And, you know, first and foremost, you know, I grew up in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You know, grew up with my mom. She taught me her work ethic, being from a different country, supporting 2 kids. You know, she ingrained in me how hard you have to work. Becoming a basketball coach, I really didn't understand what path I wanted to go into. In high school, I went to Northeast High School in Oakland Park, Florida, and I had 4 different coaches in 4 different years. So I never really had that stability. I never really had that father figure substance to just teach me, you know, whatever it was. So when I got to college, I still wanted to be around the game. I went to the University of Florida, and when I got there, I ran into Carolyn Peck. I don't know if any of you know her. Right now she's with ESPN, but she was the head coach at the University of Florida at the time. Wanted to be still part of basketball, so I was on the women's practice team for 4 years. And during my time there, I met Anthony Grant. You know, it's kind of funny because they had a Billy D 3-on-3 tournament for the student body, and the winners of the student body would play the coaching staff for the championship. So it was Billy D, Anthony Grant, and Major Parker. So after that game, that's really where I cultivated my relationship with Anthony Grant. And, you know, he took me under his – excuse me, Coach?
Who won?
You should ask Grant. No, we won. We got him. They're getting up there, Coach. They're getting up there in age, but we got him. But so Anthony Grant was able to take me under his wing, you know, teach me some things. I believe my senior year, I really started having a relationship with him and Darren Hertz. And I've always been a big proponent on learning from others. Definitely have to learn from others in this business. I've learned that every person's journey is different. You know, everyone has a story. You know, it's what you do with that story. It's what you do with that journey. So after I graduated from Florida, I got an internship with the Charlotte Bobcats. I worked for Bernie Bickerstaff, Carl Hicks, and then I worked for a guy named Kenny Williamson. His nickname was Eggy, and he was one of the big-time scouts in the NBA. And I was about 21, 22 years old, just trying to learn from him, just trying to watch him. And one thing he always told me that sticks out to me to this day in evaluating players, like anybody can recruit, you know, and guys that are support staff on this call, man, I think anybody can recruit. You have to recruit, write letters, make phone calls, but I think it's really big on evaluations. So one thing he told me was you got to watch it more than once. You know, you could catch a guy on a good day, catch a guy on a bad day. And then he also told me you need to watch their feet. You know, they got to be able to move their feet laterally, especially in basketball. So I'm just trying to give you guys some nuggets through my journey here. So I get back to after the Charlotte Bobcats, Michael Jordan came in, and pretty much it was a whole new staff. So I had to go back to college. And I ran into Coach Grant. Literally, he got the VCU job. He's cleaning out his office with his wife, going down the back stairs of the facility. And for some reason, I went through the back entranceway. I didn't go through the front. And we ran into each other, and we started talking. And that's when he asked me to become a graduate assistant at VCU. So in this business, one thing I'll tell you is everything's about timing. You know, I don't think there's no plan in timing. You just have to be ready for it. That's what I've learned over the years. Coach Grant took me to VCU, had 3 great successful years there. Learned from some great coaches, John Brandon, Tony Pujol, Alan Edwards, Brett Nelson. So I learned a work ethic from a very young age in the business with them. Anthony Grant, you know, got the Alabama job. He asked me to go with them, so I did. You know, not to get too personal, I was, you know, I kind of made some roots at VCU, so I kind of, part of me wanted to stay, but I knew I had to leave. And then this goes back to timing, and everything happens for a reason in this business, in my opinion, as well. I get to Alabama, and we have to do a physical. You know, the whole coaching staff has to do a physical. And I found out I had melanoma, cancer. So, you know, if it wasn't for that move, I probably would have, I don't know what would happen at VCU, the doctor said. So, you know, anyone that's going through transitions in this thing, just know that my personal experience, everything happens for a reason, man. And I've been very fortunate to be around some great people. So I'm at Alabama now, and I'm there for 2 years. And the way I got to Murray State was Anthony Grant was doing scheduling with Steve Prohm. And, you know, out of the blue, he had a position open. I didn't know Coach Prohm at all. I didn't know him at all. So he took Anthony Grant's word, called some people in Florida about recruiting. And next thing you know, I'm at Murray State for the next 6 years. Had tremendous success there with Coach Prohm. Gave me my first shot to prove myself on the road and on the floor. And I'll always be indebted to him for that. So Coach Prohm went off and he went to Iowa State, and Coach McMahon got the head job. And I was able to see some things that Coach did. And Shane Nichols came on, Tim Kane came on, and the way he had to restart that program because we lost a lot of talent. And the one thing he always said, and I know Shane's on here right now, he always said we have a one-day contract, and he got it from Rick Pitino's book. So it was, I mean, I don't know if any of y'all read that, but every single day we walked in, there was a note on the desk saying one-day contract, and that's how you kind of have to approach this thing, with a sense of urgency. And then Matt always used to tell us, you can never be too organized. And I thought I was organized in this thing. Matt McMahon is the most organized human being I've ever been around. So any advice to you guys is, if you think you're organized, you can even become more organized in this. Because the more organized you are, I think the easier the job becomes, because it is a hard job. And I know Coach G, one thing I did learn at Murray State with Coach Prohm and Coach McMahon, I know Coach G touched on it about time. He had his definition of time. You know, I think timing as well equals love. You know, guys really don't know how much you care until you put in that time with them. And time to me equals love. So funny story, I'll tell you this. We're at Murray State, and we had a lot of success our first year with Coach Prohm. We were one of the last undefeated teams in the country. And a lot of our games were double-digit wins. So that summer, we meet Coach Driscoll in Nashville for a coaching clinic, for like a one-on-one coaching session. And here's another note: you should never have no ego. Your ego should never be too big to learn from others, because we're coming off being ranked 7th in the country. We're sitting down with Coach Driscoll, and who I think is one of the –
we finished 7th in the league.
Yeah. So I think, you know, I don't know how many of you follow Coach Driscoll. He's one of the best in the country with special situations. He has a binder like this big with every single situation that you could come across. And he puts his binder down, and Coach Prom and I look at each other like, man, we were never in these situations all year long. I mean, we might have had one game. So since that day, Coach Driscoll, I've learned from you, and I have my binder now, you know, and I've listened to your special situations seminars, and that's one thing I've learned over the years. So you should never have no ego. Should ever be too big to learn from somebody else. Coach Grant came back from the NBA, went to the University of Dayton, made the phone call. One of the hardest things I've ever done in my professional life. I don't envy anyone to ever say bye to their players and have to leave, and that's something I had to do. Went to the University of Dayton, was able to see Coach Grant build a foundation with that team that, you know, that they had this year. You know, he was building that foundation 2 years ago. And then full circle at Dayton, I had to pay off a loan. So when I was at VCU as a graduate assistant, I had to take out a $24,000 loan just to make it. And when Coach Grant hired me, that first paycheck that I got from Dayton, I was able to pay back that loan finally. So it was about 10 years later. So my advice to everyone on here is, you know, especially support staff guys that are trying to get on being an assistant coach, you have to take risks. Okay. You have to take risks in order to advance. You know, in this profession, it's one of the few professions in the world where every advancement you make, you have to take a pay cut as well, most likely, especially coming from support staff, which I was for 7 years. Timing is everything. And then you got to stay the course. You got to stay the course in this thing, because I was a video coordinator for about 6 years and I was burnt out. I was done with it. I was going to probably go back, do something else. You know, I did collections one summer. I sold insurance another summer. And, you know, luckily the door opened with Coach Prom just from a scheduling call. So, like, you never know. You never know whenever that door opens, but when it does open, you have to be willing to relocate. And then I got the phone call from Coach Prom about going 2 years ago. So I left Dayton, came to the Big 12 to reunite with Coach Prom, and you know, I'm here now. So I've been fortunate to be around some great coaches, great assistant coaches, great support staff. I think the best leaders, are the ones that serve, like Coach G said. And, you know, I hope you guys are able to get some information, some nuggets from there. I know I was fast. So, you know, if anyone has any questions.
Hey, Kane.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
I'm getting texts and stuff. There was a small part you missed at Murray State that I think some people want you to talk about as it pertains to recruiting, especially a young man from South Carolina that you recruited, and maybe just talk about the differences in recruiting, you know, whether it's OVC, A-10, Big 12. But talk about that piece, because I'm sure some people want to hear about the Ja Morant deal as well.
Hey, James, before you do, tell them how you slicked me and you gave me the keys to your car and I went to Subway and you watched them play and I never got to see him. Did you add that to your story?
Coach, I forgot that part, Coach.
That's the truth.
Yeah, I get, yeah. So your question was the different levels of recruiting and evaluation. So I think, you know, I'm a big believer on, you know, you got to trust your eyes, like Coach G said. You know, I think Twitter could get you fired at times. I think the Twitter hype, you definitely got to stay away from. Like the scouting services, my guys that I trust, Twitter is all about intel. Social media is all about intel for me, but I want to see with my own eyes. And then, you know, each level, you know, obviously you're dealing with some high level kids right now, and you know, kids that have options at this level, you know, they tend to go through the course, they go through the process a little longer. But I just think you got to get the best players you possibly can. You know, the guys at Murray State, and Shane will tell you, are you know, some of them are no different than the guys at Iowa State, at Dayton. You know, I just think you got to recruit to the system. You know, Ja obviously was a sleeper, diamond in the rough, but you know, you can't underestimate the player development that Coach McMahon had. And Shane worked with Ja every day, Tim Kane, Casey Long, and you know I don't know what his percentages were shooting the ball, but that's just a testament. I know he was in the gym every day with those guys. So you know, I just think you gotta trust your eyes. Definitely I always look at lateral movement, because if you can't guard, you can't play unless you're getting 40. And then, you know, try to stay away from the hype. You know, definitely try to stay away from the hype, and you got to get in on guys early and try to get them to pop before anyone else finds out about them as well. You know, Ja's an example, but we had a lot of other kids, Tevin Brown, Terrell Miller. I will tell you this, our focus was trying to get high major transfers to come down a level, trying to get high school sleepers that no one knows about, and then JUCO transfers. Like Terrell Miller was a JUCO, probably a SEC talent, but he had some baggage coming out of JUCO that people didn't want to deal with, and you got to be willing to deal with it and try to help him through it. And you know, he won a championship there. So those are different angles that I use in recruiting, different things I look for. So I hope that answers your question. Any other questions?
Yeah, Coach Kane, I got one for you. Alex Riley. I'm now at Cleveland State. I was with Coach Kane his year at Dayton. I wanted to ask you about player development. You know, some of the workouts that you did with the guys are some of my favorites, mostly because you ended with those cardio-based shooting drills. And I just want to know, like, what your mindset was on some of those, because sometimes it'd be the guys that would play 30 minutes a game, sometimes it'd be the guys that, you know, are waiting their turn. But just, you know, what your mindset was and how you built, because you had a large number of drills that you had, just like where you would pull those drills from and just how your mindset developed on that as you went along.
Yeah, so those drills came from Matt McMahon. He's got the whole encyclopedia. But you know, it's funny you asked. That's a good question, because when I got to Dayton, you know, I knew individual workouts to go one speed, you know, and it was to go hard, to teach toughness, go game speed. And Coach Grant was like, man, what are you doing? You know, it's the summertime. What are you doing? And he was like, we're not trying to wear these guys out. We need to work on their weaknesses and their skill set. And he's obviously coming from the NBA. So he sees a whole different perspective on things than, you know, a college coach like me who's just making guys go 100 miles an hour. So when I got to Dayton, I really had to balance my workouts to where, yeah, I want them to learn how to go hard, but I also want to work on their weaknesses and skill set and get reps. You know, like we would get 20, 30 reps with just the left hand. So I do like to end it with a toughness drill. I got that from Matt. To answer your question, the cardio drills. And now with Iowa State, it's kind of the same thing. I kind of taken my foot off the gas a little bit in individual workouts, especially in the summertime, to teach more about skill development and to work on people's weaknesses. Like Obi Toppin, and Alex was there. Obi Toppin, you know, he couldn't post worth anything coming through the door. He was skinny, couldn't pass at all coming through the door out of the post. And I mean, Coach Grant did this drill, literally the guy's on the block and he's making one-hand passes 50 times with his right, 50 times with his left, different passes throughout the court. And, you know, now I'm looking at him 3 years later, the guy's a phenomenal passer. They're playing out of the post through him. So, you know, there's different ways to skin a cat. There's most definitely different ways to skin a cat. But that's, you know, I've learned over my years that, you know, you can always take from different people and try to implement it, you know, with one thing.
Coach Kane, Timothy P. from Missouri Western State. First of all, when you get Tyler Harris on campus, tell him, make sure whenever you start crying, they're going to fly in his dad's like that.
Sorry, you're
second is, what is going to be the one thing that gets you guys over the hump? Okay, my bad.
Sorry, that first part you were cutting out. I'm sorry.
Hear me? They're a little better?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know if it's you or me.
It might be me.
Okay.
I'm in the boonies of Tennessee.
Yeah. So what was your first question?
Can you hear me? Is it better?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
As I said, the first thing is make sure you tell Tyler Harris if he start crying, that won't fly in his dad's backyard playing pickup. And then second, what is the one thing for you guys to get that place over, get over the hump? Is it having guys stay, having guys stay 3 or 4 years, because you guys have a lot of talent that's been in and out of your program really quickly, or is it just continuing to just build the foundation and make sure the foundation is still solid?
Yeah. Well, I think you know, in any program, the foundation and culture has to stay the same no matter who comes through the door. But you know, when Coach Prohm went to the Sweet 16, he had seniors. He had 4-year guys: George Niang, Naz Long, Monte Morris. Obviously, they're pros, but it always helps to have seniors. I think we're a victim of our own success recruiting. And I didn't recruit any of these guys. It was Neil Berry, Danielle Robinson, William Small, Coach Prohm. They recruited the roster before I got here, and those guys were 1-and-dones, 2-and-dones. So I mean, we lost a lot of talent. The past 2 years, guys that should still be in the program if they didn't leave early. But you know, this transfer market this past year, we were patient. We got some experience, like you said, Tyler. Got Blake Hinson. Got Jalen Coleman-Land. So we got some older guys to come in and try to bring that experience from different levels. You know, they played high major basketball as well. So I feel really good about our squad this year. I think we're definitely going to be able to hold our own. And then, you know, next year, I think right now they're all juniors, and then next year they'll all be seniors. You know, we had a good transfer sitting out from Troy, who I think has a chance. So, you know, I just think it's just a matter of experience for us to get back to getting older.
We got time for 1 or 2 more questions for Coach Kane. Does anyone have one?
Hey, Coach. Peyton Sturm. I'm an assistant coach at West Virginia Tech. Just a question about young guy, whether he's in a support staff role or an assistant coach at a smaller college. When you were in that support staff role, how did you just continue to build your network?
Yeah, so I mean, I love helping out support staff, man, because that's how I came up. You know, first and foremost, you know, I forgot to tell you this, man. Anyone that tells you like you can't advance, you can't make it, you know, as an assistant coach, as a recruiter, if you haven't played the game, you know, I didn't play the game, you know, and you know, I played in high school, then I went to UF, so I didn't play college ball. So like anyone out there that if someone's telling you that, man, just keep grinding and keep working, because I had a lot of people told me that to me. Second thing is just stay the course. The guy that you work for now, the boss that you have now, that's the guy that's going to get you the job, in my opinion. You know, I worked for Anthony Grant. Steve Prohm hired me because of Anthony Grant. If Anthony Grant didn't vibe with me, I would never have been an assistant coach, most likely. So work your ass off to the job you have now. Always be valuable. You know, you in order to get hired, you have to provide a service. So whatever it is, you know, players are are a big factor in it. But if I hire a staff, I'm going to hire guys that I trust. I'm going to hire like great energy guys, guys that are able to build relationships with people, guys that have a sense of urgency when they walk through the door in the office. So, my whole thing is network as much as you can. At Alabama, funny story. Obviously it's a big football school. Nick Saban had the thing rolling. So AAU coaches will be coming in, in the mornings for a big football game. And I just built relationships tailgating with them. That's all I did. I'm just tailgating with these AAU coaches. And Murray State, I was able to go back into Alabama and start recruiting Alabama because of my relationships through the football games at Alabama. So I don't know what you have to set up there, but just keep networking, whether it's camp, whether it's elite camp, whether it's individual camp, whether it's, whatever sporting event, just keep networking, man. Then good things will happen. Good things will happen.
Appreciate it. I was a student manager in a GA at West Virginia, so I'm very familiar with the Big 12 and
yeah. I mean, I used to park the cars. I used to do this with the little flicker thing, and Jeffrey Moss's dad. Jeffrey Moss's dad. I helped him with a parking spot, and when Coach Grant was called Anthony, when Jeffrey Moss's dad found out I was interviewing at Murray State, he calls Prom and was like, "Man, I like that guy." And I'm just hoping the guy move, parking to his parking spot at Alabama. So, you just never know who's watching. Goes back to what Coach G said.
Anyone got one last question for Coach Kane? Coach Kane, I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us.
Yeah.
Obviously, really good insight into your journey, and obviously, there's a reason you're one of the best at what you do. So, really appreciate you. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. Do you have anything you want to close with?
No, just my whole thing is throughout my whole career, man, I put players first. Put your players first that you have there, and everything else will fall in place. And everything happens for a reason in this business, man. So just, you guys, I've done other things. I've done other things, and on our worst day, coaching, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It could be, so just remember that, guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on and sharing with us. Last up tonight, one of the most energetic people in the business, one of the most humble, one of the nicest, and obviously one of the best coaches, Coach Matt Driscoll at North Florida. Really enjoyed getting to know Coach Driscoll. I don't even know if he knows this. He watched our AU team a couple times, and I don't know if he took any of our players. Coach Evans told him they weren't good enough, but no, I'm excited to hear Coach Driscoll and what he's got to share. So I'll turn it over to Coach Driscoll.
First of all, Coach G, I wanted to show that monument I was talking about in Bajimi. I got to speak up there for Dan Nynum. You know Dan. And he put me up in a casino, and I spoke up there. It was great. There was probably like 10 people that came to the clinic, and he told me that the year before it was sold out. He just forgot to tell me that Tubby spoke. So, but it was a great experience. And Coach Kane, you and Coach G come from Pittsburgh. You ain't playing soccer, so I ain't got no soccer stories for y'all. But I will tell you this.
Coach, before you start, please tell me you have a Dunkin' Donuts coffee somewhere.
So the answer to your question is no, I don't.
Because I have a $20 bet right now with somebody that you have Dunkin' Donuts with you.
I actually am going water right now. I went down to 124 ounce a day, 3 cream, 6 Splenda. So I apologize for you losing. We don't like to say the word sorry. We like to say apologize. So I apologize. Only time we say sorry is if you hurt somebody, you run somebody over, and you do something, you're that way. But I think all these guys talked about this. I'll be real quick. And I think everybody on here, I mean, there's a lot of guys that I know on here, a ton. And I know a lot of their journeys and what they've done and what they've been through. There's guys on here that could tell you much, much greater stories and much, much greater understanding about life, just serving our country or doing different things that they've done throughout their deal. And the one thing I would say is, first and foremost, is this. You better be who you are, and you better embrace where your feet are planted. Because if you don't do that purposefully, then you're not going to make it in this business. And if you're always looking for a job, you will quickly find yourself without one or with the inability to get where you want to get to. Because at a very, very young age, young age, when I was working McDonald's, my daddy taught me, whatever you do, our name's on it. And that's why we had the cleanest bathrooms of any McDonald's in the country. I'll take it. We'll argue it as long as you want to argue it. So whatever you do, do it purposefully. I'm Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. So God has been a great influence on me. And when Coach Kane says he walked down the steps, it was not accidental. I don't believe in them. I don't believe in coincidence. I don't believe in luck. I believe that you're placed in places. There's dots on the map that you are placed. And when you are placed there, your job is to do what you're supposed to do for the reason that Coach had said earlier and Coach G had said earlier, because that's where you are. Forget what you're getting paid. Now, I do disagree with Coach in the sense that you have to look at things for money for a lot of different reasons, because money is something that comes into play. But we've all done less with more, and we've all gone places that $4,800 as a head coach at a Division III, I'll talk to you about it in a second, taking a job and getting fired, then you take half your salary, or you get out of the business and you decide what you do. All those things are all part of it. But I believe deeply that the Pump said it early when I got to know them early, that it's all about relationships. And Coach Kane and Coach G, when I was the president of the assistant coaches, and we put together a clinic, and we had all these 600-700 people out there doing this huge thing on networking, when they asked Bruce Weber at the end, so if I do X, Y, and Z, are you going to hire me? He looked this guy straight in the eye, and he said, no. I'm going to hire dudes that got my back. I'm going to hire dudes I trust. I'm going to hire dudes I know, because we understand what's inside this business. And I think when you look at it, and when you look at your dots and you see the way you've gone, the way in which you prepare yourself, the way in which you have character, the way you act when no one's watching, the way in which you approach your everyday, when you do these things, you're placing dots on a map. That's all you're doing. Nothing less than that. And understand that. You're not going to AAU to get a job. You're not going to the JUCO out in Hutch to get it. You're not doing these things. You're going there because that's your job at that particular moment. What transpires from there in the way in which you approach people and the better we are as listeners, that's where it all starts to unfold. And, I mean, I got a gazillion stories, a gazillion. And I'm not embarrassed by any stretch of the imagination. When you guys actually look at this, there's nothing on here that embarrasses me. But I speak a lot, and I speak to a lot of different people. And sometimes people don't understand where we come from. People say, well, you had a mom and a dad. Well, you know what? I don't know how many of you had a mom and a dad that slept in different beds. So that was kind of different. That was kind of odd. I didn't know what any of that stuff meant back then. So we all have different things. But when we go through life, all this stuff, all these dots on a map, all these relationships, they go 1, 2, 3. These greens are before I even got into coaching. And it's amazing how all of this stuff came into play here. All of this stuff, from delivering a paper. I had a guy come to our game this year. I was his paper boy when I was 12. He and his wife came to see us play. So don't think that what you do every single day, just go at every day and make a difference in someone's life. And when you do that, everything else will take its own course. When you look through how different people do things and you look through coaching, So just coaching in and of itself, a real coaching job. I was 24 when I got my first one. And 44 when I got my, so 20-year span between being a high school coach and becoming a Division I head coach. A 20-year span. And you can see trials and tribulations and things that are going to happen in the way. But if I told you all these stories, it would just be, it's amazing how all those stories directly relate to this. Going to school, going to JUCO, getting a Division III job when there's no, like, I got a Division III head coaching job and I was a high school assistant coach. That ain't happening in today's world. But it happened because all my dots lined up and all my relationships, where someone used the word earlier, were genuine. Like you saw in the back of my door and my back screen. Like love people, man. Like just love people. And if you have disagreements or you have things, that's life. Coach Moon at Laramie, Wyoming, he couldn't stand me after he offered me a gazoodle of money to stay and be an assistant and not go with Larry Shiat. He offered my wife an incredible salary to be the cheerleading coach. And I said, Coach, I got to go to the ACC. Like it's the best thing for my family. And I know you're disappointed, but that's what I'm doing. And this is the same dude that hired me in North Florida. So treat people the way you want to be treated. Don't burn any bridges, but you're going to disappoint people. That's part of the journey. And you mend those fences along the way when those people understand. Larry Shiat, one of the greatest mentors you could ever, if your staff can ever go and get with him, he'll do it. He'll come to you, go to his house. Some of you on here have done it. Larry Shiat is an amazing human being. Amazing human being. Jerry Slocum is an amazing human being. Scott Drew, an amazing, like who you going to be around? Coach Kennan always says, show me your friends or show me your future. Like, who you going to be around? So when you look at your journey and you think about all this stuff, this is the way I look at it. So let's just go back to here. And during my journey, I'm in Pittsburgh. I take a job up here at Zillion Opal, and I take a high school job. During the high school job, we go to team camp. When we go to team camp, 13 hours away on a bus to Providence, Rhode Island. The head coach of Providence, Rhode Island was Rick Barnes. The assistant coach was Larry Shiat. I'm watching Boys in the Hood for the first time. It just came out. Dan Gavitt, the head of the NCAA, is showing me how to take Domino's pizza, take the 8 slices, make it 16, sell it for $2, and make a ton, right? I'm learning all this stuff. But the relationship I had with Coach Shiat, he gets his first head job out in Wyoming, and he brings me with him. But what's crazy is, as you go through this and as you learn and as you see things, like, figure things out. Figure what's going to be best for you. So fast forward, forget about all the other stories. We go to Clemson. He says to me, Drisk, you got to become on the assistant coaches committee. It's the best way to make a difference in the game. I'm telling you, I did it. I'm telling you. Well, whatever Coach Shiat did, I was going to do. So I did it. But when I did it, guys, I did it to make a difference in the game. Not to get my tickets early on Thursday, because back then you could sell them and make a ton of money. I had no idea what people were doing. I was like, what are they doing? I thought we were figuring out, can we get tickets on the road if a kid already signs? Can the team leave them? So it's not like film exchange, how to get recruit. I mean, I could go back and show you the notes and get the notes, but I'm like trying to make a difference. And all these dudes want to do is go in line and get their VIP tickets early on Thursday. And if you're on here and you did that, I'm just speaking the word. So I do this, but here's the deal, guys. When I go to Minneapolis, Final Four the last time it was there, and I sit in Kelly's bar, and I don't drink, and I'm in the basement, and I'm pissed off because we're having a meeting about things that I thought were so important in the basement of a bar. And sitting across from me, Scott Drew. I don't know, Scott. I thought Scott Drew made the shot. I thought he was Bryce. And then he resigns. He resigns as the first assistant. And Bernie Fine was the second assistant, but he never would take the first assistant because the first assistant's got to become the president if the president ever gets fired and can't be the president. So Scott Drew said, look, this dude right here, like he should be the first assistant. Next thing you know, first assistant, guy gets fired, he loses his Division I status, I become the president. Next thing you know, all those relationships are still to this day in the NCAA, in search firms, in everything. Like those relationships are huge, huge, huge. But you go back here and you work camp, and in 1994, you're a Division III coach working camp for Rick Barnes, and like you're working camp, and all of a sudden, like there's a dude that's a JV coach, and you befriend the JV coach, and you treat people the way you want to be treated, and then bada bing, bada boom, you're the coach in North Florida, and now this dude is 2003. It's like 11 years later, and he's got a guy that plays at Tennessee State that weighs 137 pounds that wants to transfer because Cy Alexander just got fired, and we get him. He ends up scoring 1,300 points for us. I never recruited him. Never recruited him. He handed them to us. And it goes back to, like, embrace where your feet are planted. If you're there to work camp, work freaking camp. Like, don't go there to get a job. Go there to do what you're supposed to do. Everything else will take its own course. And then, as you continue to go through it, or you continue to whatever, like, when we get the Valpo job, and we're sitting in here for 7 weeks, I can't tell you the story about how the whole thing Baylor went down. It's a 2-hour series by itself. It's awesome. But guess what? The whole thing took place in LA. It all took place in LA. Because when we got the job, I said to Coach, what's your goal? And he said, Drisk, man, I want to be a high major head coach. And I said, man, that's awesome. Because I was the oldest guy on the staff. He had to hire an old dude. I said, man, I've been there. I've been there 5 years at Clemson, like 2 championships in the ACC. Like, man, that's awesome. Let's get that done. Here's what you need to do. We need to go to the Pumps Retreat. I need to introduce you to a couple headhunters. I need you to meet some people. Coach is 31 years old. So we go. On the way going was the weekend that the thing came out, that their drug deal going bad, murder, cap them, all that stuff. I said, Coach, man, you're the dude for the job. You're a Christian. You're young. They don't care how much you lose. Like, you're perfect. Guys, I can't make this up. Can't make this up, Val. We're there. Remember, Coach's brother was a 16th pick in a draft. Who'd he play for? Tim Floyd. Tim Floyd's sitting right next to us. We're waiting to hear Wooden speak. Hallam's finishing. Say to Coach something about the Baylor job. Tim Floyd says, you know, my roommate in college was Kim Mulkey Robertson's husband. Dots on the map, bruh. Bada bing, bada boom. Start putting things in place. But, like, all that stuff, like, every day. Like, you guys talk about recruiting and your journey in recruiting. Like, you either know what a player is or you don't. Like, you work with them every day. So I had the greatest job in the world. I actually never had to go on the road. I was restricted earnings, but I wasn't part of the restricted earnings. I was just restricted earnings. I never had to go on the road. So I got to sleep with my wife every night. I got to see my kids, but I wasn't a very good father at that time. I thought I was, but I wasn't. I was a good provider, but I was too much into my job. But I got to do all the practices, all the work. I got to do everything. And when Andy Katz wrote an article about us when we got the job in 2009, he said, Coach, no one says you're a recruiter. I said, I'm not. When we got ranked the 8th best assistant in the country by our peers, The guy called me and said, did you recruit Tweety Carter, First McDonald's, Curtis, Lace Darius, Kevin Rogers? Which one of those guys did you bring in? I said, which one? I said, none. None. Because everything's about a team. Coach said it earlier. Like dudes fell in love with Bruce Martin. Like dudes loved Bruce Martin. He was the director of basketball operations. They loved him. Loved him. And he never went on the road recruiting. He got dudes for us. So don't buy into all that crap. And the best thing is when you're an old guy, you get the job at Baylor, and all them young dudes want to go. Coach Tang, Coach Mills, Coach Moorfield, Coach Drew, all they did was recruit. I was like, see y'all later. Hit them on the booty on the way out. I got all the practices, all the workouts, all of them. It was awesome. And then I had the best job in the world, Coach. I had to go put my eyes on the dude before whatever. Man, are you kidding me? The best. The best. And when you work for a guy like Coach Drew and you learn what you said earlier about recruiting, man, it's all about players, bro. Like, I didn't want to take Lace Darius stuff. All-time leading scorer in Big 12 history till Buddy Hield just broke it by 5 points. All-time leader. And I said, Coach, we're making a mistake. We can't take him. We got Tweety, CJ, Henry, 1,000-plus points. You can't take him. He said, Driss, trust me on this. Get the best players you can get and figure it out. I said, Coach, we can't take him. We're going to have this and this and this. He said, Driss, trust me. And you know, when I left Baylor job, Coach Drew brought me in the office and we got done crying. He said, you know, Coach, not only are you loyal, but you always spoke your mind and you always spoke what it was. And then you always knew when it was enough. And I said, Coach, I'm only going to ask you a couple times because obviously I'm going to lose that battle. Of course, we take Lace Darius Stein, leads us to the NCAA tournament, fastest turnaround in college basketball history from a murder, obviously the NCAA tournament. So as you're moving through this process, like you got to understand, and you're going to make decisions. I think Coach Kane said it. You're going to make decisions. Like a lot of y'all don't know this. This is crazy. This is crazy. So I work all these camps at Clemson. Well, I don't think Dennis Felton likes me. There's just some certain things I just never got a feel for Dennis Felton, which was whatever. Well, some people don't like me. That's fine. I'm cool with that. So we get the Wyoming job. Dennis Felton gets Western Kentucky. And that's 1 year difference from Shy getting Wyoming. He got Western Kentucky in that year, 1 year, and then the next year. Dennis Felton called me and offered me the job, and I took it to be his whatever, top guy, whatever he called it back then. I took it for 24 hours. Talk about making a tough decision. I took it for 24 hours. Back then, we had real plane tickets. I never went to the Final Four until that year, and it was ripped up in the trash. I had to tape it together to get on the plane. Guys, I can't make this up. I land. And, of course, I got to go face to face. I got to be a man. God is so good. We were in the same rental place. So I got that knocked out. So now the Final Four is going to be great. So I go put my stuff in the room. I go for a walk. I see Rick Barnes. He had just hired Ricky Stokes to replace Dennis Felton. He's in a nail salon. I said, Coach, what are you doing? He said, man, our wives are getting their nails done. I'm just reading the paper. Final Four was in San Antonio. He was reading the Austin Statesman. Guys, I can't make this up. He flips the page over. If you remember, go back and Google it. That's when Tom Penders got fired. He said to me, Drisk, and he cussed a little bit. Not now, but then. He said, Drisk, who in their right mind would take this job? This dude's won 20-some games a year. Who wants to be the coach at Texas? 6 weeks later, he was. So that's how we got to Clemson. So when you're doing things and you're moving through this business and this whole journey and what you should do, I'd say this, pray on it, pray hard on it, but seek wise counsel. I don't ever make decisions unless I seek wise counsel. People that understand, Shy being one of them, Coach Drew being another, Coach Slocum being another. Like, seek wise counsel. How is this going to look? What's it going to look like? I can remember like it was yesterday calling Shy saying, I can stay at Valpo, be Homer's assistant, and possibly, depending on how things work out, maybe be the next head coach. Of course, I didn't know Bryce was going to come back. They didn't tell me that one. Or I can go with Coach. And Coach Shy had said, it's a no-brainer. You got to go with Coach. And then a lot of people, not my mentors, but a lot of people were telling me, professional suicide, don't do it. You're just going to be a scapegoat. They're going to get rid of him. And then, then somebody else going to come in. You want to study somebody? You want to learn about somebody? 18 years that brother's been there. 18 years that brother's been at Baylor. You want to talk about how to grow a program? I say this to you too. You don't realize how good you have it until you listen to people. And you listen well. Thad Mata grabbed me. He only knew me from recruiting. I didn't know him from Adam. He said, here's my cell number. I'll never forget it. We were at Cincinnati at the Adidas. And he was walking with Lou Ann Humphrey from the NCAA tournament. So I figured, I knew Lou Ann from the NCAA enforcement because of when I was the president. So I figured he was in trouble. So I tried to stay away. I veered away from them. He said, here's my cell number. Call me. I want to talk to you about your job. I hear it's a lot like Butler. Here's what he told me. When we won our first championship, I took the note card, took a picture of it, and sent it to him. One of the things he told me was, celebrate small victories. Always celebrate small victories. We still do that to this day. We still do that to this day. Because, man, it's tough. It's tough as you grow and as you move through it. And when you look back at what you're doing and kind of the way in which you're doing it, like when you really look at your journey, if you break it down like this, like there's so many different things that transpired and so many different things that happened as you went through it that, for instance, like being rejected. And I know it says on there, I got divorced. I know you guys read that on there, screenshot it, whatever. That ain't what I'm talking about. Like being rejected. So understand, you may not get everything you want. You may not be able to get involved, even though you think you should be involved. And the other thing is, like, you better be willing to be rejected a ton. It's like recruiting. You're going to hear no a whole lot more than yes, but you know what? Sometimes no's are good. That means we can go recruit somebody else. So rejection happens. I lost my mind when I was a finalist of Robert Morris. We hadn't gone to the NCAA tournament yet, but we were getting there. It was in my hometown. I literally interviewed with another guy. They hit us because it was all fake. We were all pawns. And the reason I know that is because when I walked into the president's office, he had a St. Joseph's Final Four ball behind him. He was a vice president of St. Joseph's when Mike Rice was an assistant, when they went to the Final Four. You know what I said to him? I said, hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, but I ain't getting this job because I know where Mike Rice coached. So he laughed. Funny story, when we went to the NCAA tournament in 2015, he's one of the first guys that texted me, the president, from Robert Morris, and that's who we played. He's one of the first guys that texted me. So I don't get the Robert Morris job. There's a job in the league the next year at St. Francis, and their AD and their president called for me. Their AD and their president called for me. We went to the NCAA tournament. A guy on the committee was at the game. I don't get that job in my hometown, next to a prison, if you've never seen St. Francis. Coach Kimmel, who's coaching there now, his daddy was the AD. I don't get that job for whatever reason. I go home. I tell my wife, I'm like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. I'm 44 years old, 43 or whatever it was. We just turned around a murder. Like, golly, it's next to a prison. I don't know. And she looked me dead in the eye. Talk about having a good woman. And the fact we have a Christ-centered marriage is just incredible. She looked me dead in the eye. She said, God ain't ready for you to be a coach. I said, man, you know the hours we put in at Baylor? Like, do you understand what it was like when we took over for a murder? Come on, man. So you're going to get rejection. But what you got to do is, like, you got to take that failure that you're feeling and just fuel it and turn it into that next day. Suffer that night, that next day. Who can I make a difference for? How can I make a difference? How can I make a difference? Whatever it is, how can I make a difference? You know, you talk about helping the head coach and all that kind of stuff. Man, I want to help the assistants. I want to help the assistants. I'm sweating, by the way. I want to help the assistants. Whatever it is we can do, because the greater we are like this, that's why we won 3 championships in the last 6 years. And I'm going to tell you something else, too. When you're a restricted earning guy like me and you weren't out on the road, you watched a lot of video. The old 8-track stuff. Or what's that? The VCR stuff. You watched a lot of video. Well, guess what? 2 of our all-league players, we never saw them with the eye. Got them both off video. Beat Division IIs for both of them. And in this day and age, what just happened with COVID, I don't know how many of you all signed, but we signed 2 dudes. So you better get good at video. You're watching all these AAU tournaments over the weekend, you better get good at video and try to figure out. It's the hardest part. You can't find out what they're like in the stands, what they're like in the parking lot, what they're like in the concession stand. That's the part you're missing. But you better get your eye right on that video, because there's some dudes out there that can play. I never believed in it. I thought it was a farce. I don't even look at it. The assistants looked at it. Joker came in my office. I said, man, this dude's a baller. Scored 1,600 points. So this pandemic's got me a little bit odd because I can't hug people anymore. So that's going to be odd for me. But pour into these cats that you got. Like, pour into them. Because it don't matter. It don't matter. Forget about basketball. It don't matter. When they're telling you about their problems, they're telling you about their family, they're telling you about everything. Everything. You're there when the moms die from being a closet alcoholic. Like, pour into these dudes, man. Because this is what you do. This is what you're supposed to do. You sign up to be a coach. You want to be a coach? Be a coach. Told that to my son. He's in the business now. He was in your league, Coach G. Ed Oral Roberts is a GA. He's an NAIA guy now. But you better pour into this, and everything else will take care of itself. So I know I was all over the place, but good thing is all the spitting's on my screen, so y'all are safe. Any questions, Coach?
If anyone has any questions, just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Coach, Akeem Miskadeen, Florida Atlantic University. Can you talk about your visit model? I know you guys got some special visits, like unofficial visit. You guys won't bring anybody in unless they're all already committed for an official visit. I heard that through another Zoom. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So the one thing we don't do is, I can't tell you, we've had a handful of guys that have come in that haven't been committed. And we really do our work early. We also do a great job of, we don't mass mail. We don't mass email. We don't do any of that stuff. We just recruit dudes. And like I think Coach said, somebody said, Coach G or Coach Kane, is 50 ways to skin a cat or whatever it is. Not that I've ever skinned one, but there's like 50 ways or something or 50 ways to leave your lover, whatever there is. But that's just how we are. We've always been relationship driven. We've always been elite camp heavy. It's really been good for us. And like the sad thing is, Coach, the 5 guys we signed early, none of them took an official visit. So none of them got to take an official visit either. Because we have a celebration in April. And then if we have an outlier, a guy leaves, or we're trying to get a guy, JT Escobar, we have those dudes that we worked so hard for so many years that have made unofficials. And then we have this guy that we're trying to get and we have them all in the same weekend, I don't even know if we've ever lost a guy. Like, so we plan it for the right reasons, for a celebration, as opposed to it being a, you know what, and also too, like, we explain reality of recruiting. Like, you come to us on Friday and you're going to go to Murray State on next Friday. Well, that's awesome. Well, we out dancing with somebody else too now, bro. Now, some guys like Bo Beach, we told Bo Beach, you got till the end of your recruiting. I don't care when you decide, you'll always have a scholarship. But there's other guys that we get this guy, and then even though we think this guy might be better, there's a reason why we offered this guy. So, it's one of those deals for us with unofficial visits. I tell you something too about elite camp. I couldn't stand Wajid Aminu. And the one thing is you better have some thick skin if you're going to be a head coach. And our rule is real simple. If the vote's 4-1, and I'm the one, then I'm wrong. So I told them jokers, if y'all think y'all are right, and they were all said, yeah. I said, well, you get that joker to elite camp. We got some dudes coming down there. Dude went to Temple. Another dude went to high major. We got some dudes coming down. We'll see how good he is. At the end of elite camp, I said, man, I sure do love you. You know that? I sure do love you. And that's it. Like, we beat, like, UTEP was messing with them, and then Miami of Ohio came in late. Crazy. But elite camp's been really good for us. Really, really, really good for us. Like Dallas Moore committed. Romello Banks stopped through elite camp on the way from Mercer, and him and Dallas were kicking it, and he committed. So, it's elite camp for us is huge. We can't have it this year. But the other thing on unofficial visits is, like, it's real now. Like, it's real. Like, the way I am now, that's how it is. It's real. So there's things you might not like, things you might not like to hear, but we just tell the dudes the truth. And then we let the cards fall where they may.
Coach D, I'll go. Brian Bennett for West Florida.
Roll, Brian.
Sorry.
Well, no. I'm saying what we just did there is a really good recruiting tool. It's called the 2-second rule.
I like it.
Sometimes and then next thing you know, the kid was going to say something else. And then that's all that silence is tough.
That is. I like it. I like it. One thing you would go back and tell your younger self after doing this for as long as you have to help the young guys?
The one thing I always argue with myself about was I should have just went and been a manager. And I think if I'd have went and been a manager, my path may have been a little bit whatever, and that I might have been able to, but I wanted to play. I didn't care that it was Division III. So I was chasing that, and then I was chasing a girl, and that was all messed up. And so that would be the only thing. I mean, so when I say go back and tell my younger you what you want to tell your younger you, I would say whatever you do, make sure you pick up all the crumbs you can possibly pick up. Coach Scheid always calls it about being a paper cupper, picker-upper. Pick up trash, like pick up crumbs. Successful people always leave crumbs. Successful people always leave crumbs. And just pick them up. Just keep picking them up. This, I like that. I like this. I like this. I like this. I like this. Whatever it doesn't matter what they do. Just pick up those crumbs. And then as you pick them up, kind of figure out how it works for you. And I'm just telling you from my heart, I wouldn't change a thing. That's the only thing I ever thought about. That was probably 10 years ago. I love everything about my life. Everything. I love the people that I've met. I've loved the difference I've made. I love the significance I've had. We've had a chance to, do other things because we had success and all that kind of stuff. But for some reason, God just really wants us here in Jacksonville. So I
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate it.
probably, probably should have done a better job maybe with my kids maybe. My son played for us. So the first Thanksgiving we had as a team, we talked about what we're thankful for. And he said, it's nice to have Thanksgiving dinner with Dad for the first time in X amount of years. That was kind of hurtful. But then he realized as he was with me that, it wasn't personal. I used to go home, eat with him, read to him, lay in bed with them, one eye open. As soon as they were gone, bam, I was gone. So now I became a bad husband, So, I wish I had done a better job with that. But, man,
Gotcha.
I'm sweating.
Appreciate it. High energy.
I love life.
Very high energy. I love it.
When my brother committed suicide, it resonated with me. The pain, the hurt, the hate, selfishness. To probably not till like 6-7 years ago, I figured out, man, it wasn't that joker's fault. Man, it was our fault. Bought a birthday card for me for the first time in his life at age 27. My birthday was 6 days later. And I'm like, and I even said to my mom, Mom, didn't you realize something was going on? He never does that. Well, I thought he was, I'm like, I was pissed. But so that's why every day to me is crucial. Crucial. I got to make a difference in someone's life. Coach G, what's up?
I forgot what I was going to ask.
I'm sorry.
It's all
I'm
good.
not. I know I'm not. I apologize.
I'll say this: Paul Bunyan left a lasting impression on you because you pulled that picture up pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, Bemidji was cold off that lake now. And by the way, that dude, Matt Bowen, was an assistant at Valparaiso. Talk about dots on the map.
For sure.
That's why I stopped to see him.
Yeah.
I never would have saw Paul Bunyan if I wouldn't have stopped to see him.
True. I liked your journey, man. It's good stuff. And I will say this: when I talked about trusting your eyes, whether it's on film or in person, obviously I like to do it in person, but film can lie to you. You got to make sure you know what you're watching when you're watching it, because film can lie to you. So,
you know what looks bad too, Coach Kane, is foot speed. That's one of the hardest things to see.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Because that kid came for us. He was a lot better than he was on video. But he could score that pill, boy.
Coach Driscoll, Justin Levine, great to see you again.
What up, bro? You know my house is always open.
Yeah, funny story. Coach Driscoll, I know a couple of his one guy, a close friend that played for him, and then Zach Friesman's on the call, and he was a manager for him. So through those guys, I've gotten to know him. Special guy, better guy than Coach, as you guys can tell. But yeah, I just wanted to ask you, obviously you got the head coaching job at North Florida. You worked for a few different guys, had different ways of doing things. You guys shoot a ton of threes. Every week on Twitter, something of your guys' action pops up, which is great. What was that? Was that a philosophy that you wanted to bring when you got a head job, is to, space the floor and shoot a lot of threes, or did the job dictate, your style of play and that sort of thing?
All right, so here comes some reality for you all, especially you young cats, and Zach was part of it. First of all, in 2003, don't ever think you're not doing something that's important. Dickie Hartung on my resume was my JUCO coach, and I also worked for him. He's the one that set up my life. He went to watch a kid play, and the kid didn't show up. I said, Coach, let's go. We're leaving. I was like 21. He goes, we ain't leaving. We're playing hoops. Come on, let's go. I said, Coach, we ain't hooping. We got a 3-hour drive. We're going home. Let's go. He's like, Drisk, we came all this way. We're hooping. I said, man, all right. So we hooped. So we get in the van. He says, remember something, man. You never waste an opportunity. There's always something. You got to believe there's something. Guys, I can't make it up, foul. A dude playing pickup with us was a really great player at Grove City. He wanted to go higher. He emails Coach a week later. He ends up being player of the year in the league the next year. So it's just kind of how the whole thing works, right? So when I was with Coach Drew in 2003, I got the job at Valpo. So he wanted me to go stay with this guy who was a gambler, professional gambler. And I was like, Coach, man, I appreciate it, man, but I'm just going to sleep under my desk. Have you ever seen that Seinfeld episode where George sleeps in the office and he's got his alarm clock and that? So I kept my luggage because I never went back to Baylor. I never went back to Clemson once I got the job. So my stuff was in the locker room. I slept under my desk. I watched Iron Chef every night on the TV in the corner. And he had me do a couple assignments, and one of them was to watch Kansas, to learn about how Kansas played so fast with Roy Williams. Kirk Heinrich was the point guard. Go back and look. So I watch it. I'm telling you, he never, ever has used it or will use it or anything. I don't think he made me do it just to give me something to do. I think he wanted to see how I worked, how I saw film. So I was like enthralled that they took the ball out underneath the basket, what was completely the opposite of everything I've learned my whole life. So we take the ball out underneath the basket at North Florida. So I'm learning all this stuff, and I'm learning all this stuff. We get in the league. We beat Belmont the first year in the league, the first time we ever played them with Ian Clark. We beat them 43-42, I believe, was the score. 43-42. And fast forward the next year, we get to the championship game with a whole bunch of young cats, and they beat us by the greatest score in the history of championship basketball. I hope none of you were on here that was on this team, but 2 years ago, someone was just getting ready to break our record, and I was pissed because they got it down to like 39. I was so mad because we were going to get out of that record book. So Belmont, I'm watching Belmont. I'm like, man, God, the way they space and shoot. And, of course, they had this 6'9", 6'10" guys. So I'm thinking, and that's when Belmont left the league. So when Rick left the league, I texted Rick, and I said, Coach, can you please meet with me? I did this when I was a Division III coach. It was actually one of the greatest things I did. I drove to a guy that beat me by 40. I was leaving their league, and his name's Jerry Slocum. He's won like 700 games, was at Youngstown State, and like he taught me. So I said, Rick, can we meet in May? Put it on your calendar now. This was in September. So he says, yes. So while we're there, I said, man, how close is Murray State? That's when we met with Coach Kane. We did the whole weekend. We had it all set up. So I'm learning. Well, you can't do that unless you got dudes that can do it. So now we're starting to get dudes that can do it. So I'm in my 5th year, and my AD gives me an ultimatum. So you want to know how the whole thing flipped the script? Because my AD said, you got to go 10-8 or I'm firing you. And this is public knowledge. And I was like, woo. So I go through depression, can't get out of bed. The whole 9 yards. I was never to the point where I was going to hurt myself. But, man, I was depressed. So go to the Final Four. Coach Slocum says, look, man, whatever you do, treat that dude the way you always treat him. Don't be worried about him. Don't be mad about the circumstances. Just understand what you can control. Get better. Figure it out. So I studied Belmont. I studied Davidson. And I'm figuring out because I know some of the pieces we got. I didn't know how good Dallas Moore was. Chris Davenport. I didn't know how good they were. I knew they were pretty good. But then we had to do Bo Beach. Could shoot the piss out of it. So next thing you know, a little bit of Davidson, a little bit of Belmont, a little bit of Mercer, bada bing, bada boom. Next thing you know, we can make threes. Got Trent Mackey, 5th best shooter in America, was a walk-on at Louisiana Monroe. Nobody wanted him. He transferred to us. And now you got a great downhill guy. You can spray it. And you got forwards that are hybrid 6'8", 6'9" guys that can bust your face. Next thing you know, it's became our thing. 2 of the last 5 years, we're number 1 in the country. So I don't want to say because we were going to get fired, it was like a threat. By the way, funny story. I give Coach some credit. In August, he came back and said, I should have never gave you that ultimatum, which is true, but it was too late. He walks in my office. We're 8-8. He walks in my office. We're going to Mercer. That's the year Mercer beat Duke. And we're going to Kennesaw State to end the season. He walks in my office and he says, hey, Driscoll, we can get a split, 9-9. We're really going to be good next couple years. We won two championships after that. I said, split? What are you, nuts? I said, Coach, we're going to get 2 dubs. We're going to be 10-8. He's like, nah, let's just get a split, whatever. For whatever reason, he didn't make the trip. He always makes a trip. We go to Mercer. They had 7 seniors that were the bomb. So it's Thursday night, Saturday senior night. They're giving all these awards out. We beat them in overtime. So this brother couldn't wait to text him. 9-8, Kevin, go to Kennesaw. Went to Kennesaw and won, went 10-8. So God is good. And so that's what led us to being that team. And then I learned about roll and replace from Coach Kennan, because that's all they did at Campbell in 2009 when we got the job. That's all I watched every game. Roll and replace, roll and replace, roll and replace, roll and replace. So from that, I learned exchange on the wing, exchange on the wing, exchange on the wing. So now when you got all these moving parts, it's amazing how you get whacked out defensively. And then all of a sudden, you're getting naked threes and like your OBRs, we were right up there with Gonzaga. So that's kind of how it happened. By the way, Justin's story about staying in my house, the dude he stayed with had no job. They were coming down to meet people. He ends up taking a job at Central Florida. While he's taking the job at Central Florida, he goes back, takes the job. Cal Lowry calls the guy at Villanova. The guy at Villanova says, I ain't ready to retire yet. He says, do you know anybody? He says, no, but I'll call my buddy at Central Florida, see if he does. He calls his buddy at Central Florida. His buddy says, I got the perfect dude for the job. And that's Travis Wallace. He's now the head strength coach at South Florida. And he's still Kyle Lowry's strength coach as well, too. But, again, dots on a map. Dots on a map. I turned the air on. I'm feeling a lot better now.
Thanks, Coach.
You got any more questions? No? Well,
Man, I'll ask a question, Coach Driscoll.
Uh-oh.
Man, how do you – nah, it's not going to be one of those. But how do you get your guys of today to play for you? Because, you're an energetic guy, and you know how some guys now confuse you for you just being a hard ass or being really tough, and it's just your passion for them and them getting better and just your passion for the game. How do you get them guys to just believe in you?
So you're probably talking about that. Can you see that? Can you see my back screen? I guess you're asking me about that.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, that's Bo Beach. That's one of the best players that ever – he just signed in Greece, ever played for us. So, you know what's sad, Coach? And I'm going to tell you something. I've never said this before, but it really hurts my heart when like I get this all the time. I get this question all the time. And you didn't hurt my heart, but like Booster's kids, we had a function and they were there and they kind of made fun of me about doing that, about, coaching dudes hard and like people text my AD during the game, what's he doing? And like, they don't know what this guy and I, like, they don't know our relationship. They don't know it. But you can't do that to everybody. But I know one thing, if I don't do that to him, he ain't going to be as good as he became. I know that. Because he couldn't get out of his own head. He couldn't get out of his own head. And he'll tell you to this day, if he was on here, it's one of his favorite pictures. He usually puts it up on his birthday. And it's just, I don't make it personal. I don't cuss at you. I don't call you a no good MFer and stuff like that. But man, like, it's just, it's difficult. And it's funny you said that. A guy that lives in my development here grabbed me the other day and said to me, no, I'm sorry. I preached at church a week ago. He grabbed me at church down here at the beach. And he said, Coach, it looks like you've mellowed out a little bit. Is that just because those guys were older, or is it just today's kids? And I was like, well, I don't think I've mellowed out one bit. I just think as you evolve relationships and as you evolve guys, one of the greatest players that ever played for us told me one time, Coach, I know why you are to me the way you are to me, but you don't treat him the same way. And I said, listen, I'm going to be fair, but I ain't going to be equal. Like, don't expect to be, praised for what you do right, but expect to be disciplined for what you do wrong. But I can't do that to him. If I did that to him, he'd melt. So you got to know your audience too. And I'll tell you what, Coach Pete, I'm going to tell you something now. That dude I was telling you about that was a beat a D2 on, that just signed in Germany, scored 1,600 points. He quit after his freshman year, and he was second voting all freshmen. And everybody thought it was because of me. Everybody. And all he was homesick. But everybody thought it was my fault. You're too hard, you're too hard, you're too hard, you're too hard. Yeah, well, 3 years later after he came back and scored 1,600 points, now it's, whatever you want to call it, kumbaya. So it just, I can tell you exactly what happened in that picture. You know what sucks, Coach? We won a championship that night, and that was the picture on the front page of the paper. How about that? We won a champion, the first time we've ever won a championship, and that's the picture they use. Talk about piss me off. Come on, man. Show the dude celebrating. So it's difficult, but you got to know your audience for sure.
Appreciate it.
And I'm wearing a shield. I'm not wearing a mask because I think guys got to be able to read your mouth. They got to be able to read your lips.
Anybody else got anything?
Hey, Dave, I got something for Coach Driscoll. Cam Gameli, Coach. I want you to explain to some of these people your energy and just the type of person you are, because I don't know if everybody in this call got to see you live and in person like I have before. And your energy is something real different. So talk to me about your passion every day for this game.
So I love, number one, I love life. I love life. Number two, I love people. I just love people. And crazy. I mean, again, these are just, whatever. But 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I used to come down to the beach and jog. I used to park in the same spot. Guy in front of me had a Youngstown State plate. One day I saw him walking back to his car because he had a Youngstown State shirt on. I said something to him. He said something back. He was kind of an introvert, kind of didn't want to have a conversation. I was like, okay, cool. Every time I saw him, I'd say, what's up? He would say like this. Now we talk for almost 30 to 45 minutes a week at Dunkin' Donuts because now that I live down here, he goes to the Dunkin' Donuts I go to, and we got this relationship. So, I just love people. And I love making a difference. And I love to pour into people. I love it. And I know a lot of it has to do with my brother's suicide. I'm positive of that. But, man, when I was a kid, Tommy Bowden used to say it all the time. He used to make fun of me when we used to have to go speaking engagements together when he was a coach at Clemson. He said, man, you be the poster child for Ritalin. I'm sure I should be on something. But, I don't know, man. I don't know, when you've been places and you've done things and you've been through stuff and, man, you can just listen to somebody and laugh and I don't know. So when you ask me to do something, I'm going to do it. Like that. That's just how I am. And some people don't like that. And, you know, some people don't like that. You know, I've had people in 12 years now, I've had people say, Coach, like, you shouldn't get off the bus and take the bags from under the bus. Well, like, I'm going to tell these dudes I came here to serve, not to be served. And I'm going to tell them to carry my bags. Come on, man. So I'm like, those are just things that, like, I believe. And I don't know. Why it's like that, I don't know. But I tell you this, though. I'm a bad reader. I don't read. I read the Bible, but I've never read the Bible. I only read it like when I get stuff every day and I look at stuff every day, and I don't read. If you send me a book, I'm going to give it to Coach Kennedy. He's going to give me the Cliff Notes. It's not personal. Like, I've had guys send me books and like, I ain't reading it. So my wife made me read a book the other day. She said it would take 15 minutes. She told me for 2 months to read the book. And finally, some lady made fun of me here because I didn't read the book yet. And so I sat down and I read it. It took 15 minutes because it was all pictures. But like, I just, like, when I put my head down at night, I go to bed like that, gone. So I'm like this. When I get up in the morning, I make the bed. If my wife's still in the side, my side's as good as it can get. If she's out of bed, the bed's beautiful. I'm going to win the day from the very get-go. That's the way I approach life.
Yeah, because, Coach, the first time I met you, I don't know if you remember this, but me and Byron Taylor were talking about this the other day.
Uh-oh.
When you came to Douglas County, man, and you walked in the gym with us, and we were missing you for 30 minutes, man. And I went outside and saw you outside with the football team running routes with the wide receivers.
Yeah, that was fun.
I said, this dude is crazy.
Hey, man, if y'all had the gym on time, if they wouldn't have had you guys hooked up in that other gym.
Yeah.
By the way, Cameron is the best talent we ever had. I'm talking about Dallas Moore, all like walking in talent. He's going to play at College of Charleston this year. Like, he's a pro. We'll see.
With other issues, yeah, you're right though.
Like, I got calls like that all year. Go back to your Coach Pete. I got high major guys from Coach Kane's league calling me, watching this JUCO kid play in North Florida. Said, what's wrong with you? Like, certain dudes, you said it, Coach G. Sometimes there's certain dudes you can't coach. It's not personal.
Anyone else have anything for Coach Driscoll?
I got a quick one. David Belfield, Army West Point. I listened to you speak last year at Queens on some of your special situation stuff. Can you just give us, maybe like your top 3 guys that you've studied and kind of stole stuff from?
Well, I stole the whole thing from Scott Drew. That was one of my things that I did. I presented the first time in 2007 at Florida for Coach Scheid at that Florida Coaches Clinic. And let me tell you why I really love doing it. Because it's probably the only clinic that anybody who's ever seen it, it's interactive. So, like West Virginia Tech, were you there when we did it? Where'd my man go? Where's West Virginia Tech go? Where's he at? He left. Anyways, it's interactive. So I get people to speak. So now I get to hear other people's thoughts. I get to hear other people's ideas. I get to hear what other people think about different stuff. And then also, too, what I really like about it is the presenting. Like, it's not so much the 1.2 second shot. That's really not the crux of special situations. It's so for instance, how did the Rockets beat the Mavericks? Anybody? How did the Rockets beat the Mavericks? Anybody? Nobody watched the game but me. 150 153 to 149. Nobody watched the game for real?
More
All right,
possession,
anyway.
taking threes.
It's
No,
Eastern time
no.
over here. I fell asleep on. I fell asleep.
No.
on
Fell
fourth
asleep
quarter.
past my bedtime.
No. They missed a free throw block out, and Covington tipped in the free throw. The Westbrook missed to win or Harden missed to tie the game. A free throw block out. Like, that's a special situation. A free throw block out. Like, I do this thing on Bucknell. They're down 8. They cross the floor with 30 seconds to play. The ball never crosses the floor again, and they win by 1 in regulation. There's so many things in that little piece that you got to teach your guys. Not so much about running Valparaiso to get Bryce the shot or, running home run to get the Vanderbilt guy with 0.7 a layup. I mean, that's all important. I'm not saying it's not important. But to me, special situations, why I love doing it, is because it's so interactive and everybody's got so many different ways to do it. Tell you everything I learned, Coach, is don't save your side out of bounds plays for a special situation. If they're that special, run them. I started doing that 3 years ago. Talk about getting buckets. Threes, dunks. So, yeah, but Coach, the other team's going to know it. Okay. We played 4 straight games. This is like 4 straight games. Can't make it up, foul. Look up the record. 2010-11. 4 straight games before we lost to Belmont. We still hold the record. Remember, 41 points. All 4 games, we fouled at the end up 3 and won all 4. So, it's like, I love special situations because I think you can learn so much.
Thank you.
And it's never personal. And I think it's fun too. Like, you watch the Stanford one. Thing I love to show the most about the Stanford one. What is it, Zach? See if Zach remembers.
Can't remember that one, Coach.
Well, Zach, tell him what you taught me, and then I'll tell him the answer.
Facts. So you got to know the foul count, possession arrow, the clock, timeouts, and the score.
Facts. You got to know your facts. How about that one? He's made my special situations better now. And that's what I love about, Josh is on here, and Josh is a way better man than I'll ever be. And, you can learn, right? Anyways, the Stanford clip is the dude gets off the bench and hits his chest like this. And he swears. And he says, "This is our mother effing game." It's a great special situation. It's about, I guess it's the last 3 minutes or so, pressing and shots and don't foul three-point shooters and no interlock breaks and throw the ball and say, I mean, it's awesome. But that dude comes off the bench and I stop and I tell our guys, they are bought in. Like, they are going to win. Like, this dude, so I Googled it. He averaged 2 points a game. He didn't even play. But he's like this. This is our effing game. And they win. So you can get a lot out of special situations. All right, David, that was a 4-second rule on that one. So it might be time to go. These guys are falling asleep.
Hey, Dave, we can't hear you.
You're on mute, Dave.
Nah, we can't hear you.
Still on mute.
He's on the phone with Goodman, man. He gave him a shout out earlier.
Yeah, I know, right?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got you.
All right, I got to unplug them. Must have been my Wi-Fi. But, Coach, you got anything you want to close with? Sorry about that.
Nope. I am going to just throw this up real quick. Everybody knows it. The best thing to do is text me, but screenshot it, whatever. By the way, if you have an Apple computer, it's Command-Shift-3, screenshot. I learned that during the pandemic. Command-Shift-3 all at the same time, in case you didn't know that.
So, Coach, I appreciate you coming on, sharing a lot of good stuff with us. I think everybody picked up a lot. So, thank you again for coming on and sharing with us.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
So thank you again, everybody. Thanks, Coach Driscoll, Coach Kane, and Coach G for coming on and sharing with us. Really good night. A lot of good information picked up. We'll
At
be.
least we learned about Paul Bunyan and Big Blue.
We definitely did.
I enjoy the Midwest, baby.
So we'll keep it rolling next week. I guess we'll just kind of keep it week by week until nobody shows up and it's me and 3 people. So we'll keep it rolling next week. So thank everybody for coming, and I'll see you next week.
Appreciate it, fellas.
Thank you,
Thanks,
David.
Dave. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, coaches.
Good work, Dave.
God bless you.
Thanks, everybody.